All right. Good morning. FAWKES News. Coming off the heels of our sports show, great Pete Rose episode. I've always been a really big Pete Rose fan. And I think John Bates and Jason Kiefer, our sports gurus that do our sports show here, did a great job of talking about what happens to Pete Rose now that he's gone in regards to the Hall of Fame. And is there a pardon possible? It was a fantastic episode. I just got done listening to it this morning. But today we're here with a little bit of breaking news before our big show tomorrow. And listen, our show tomorrow is so big that I literally just was like, dude, we've got to, I can't put that much on tomorrow's show. We've got to get something off of the plate. So today, I wanted to talk a little bit about this InfoWars reporter's fatal attack. And I want to talk about it in the aspect that this is what happens every time Trump has made it into office. We've had violence from the left, and the only thing that the left can really argue is J6. And I've always said that in this kind of weird two-party system that we have here, one side of the system always kind of guilts the other side into exactly what they're doing. So whereas we have these years of riots and burnings of buildings, and we had all of the violence and chaos from the left during the first Trump administration, the year of riots, or whatever they called, the friendly summer, or what, the endless summer, I don't know, the summer of riots, whatever it was. And then the right shows up to what was mostly a actual peaceful protest, and some instigators or agitators, orchestrated a J6 type scenario. And even if it was not orchestrated by the FBI, which it's really looking like it was, nobody burned anything down. There wasn't any real significant amount of violence, not nearly the amount of violence as that we saw from the left for the entire length of Trump's first presidential run. In this first 3 weeks, 4 weeks that Trump has been in office, already we're starting to see violent murder and all these things, politically motivated violence and murders, stemming from Tesla to X, and now to what I'm afraid is the murder of Jamie White from InfoWars. There's no argument here that there's always been a war against people like Alex Jones, the guys at Project Veritas, but there's never been a war on The View. It certainly hasn't erupted into violence and bloodshed. So that's what Josh and I are going to talk about briefly today. But tomorrow, we've got Romanian far right runner-up for the president of Romania barred from running in the election. The Tesla riots that are happening, I'll talk a little bit about that today. X got hacked. Could be an inside job, not inside of X, but inside the United States job from an Act Blue. But we'll talk about more of that as it comes out. New Prime Minister of Canada. And then a big topic for tomorrow is Luigi Mangioni's sex tapes. And that, is this really news? Is this something that should be put out? Where does privacy end in your own home? If you didn't commit a crime by having sex tapes of yourself, why does the world need to know? Or is this just public humiliation? And should we have public humiliation in a case like the Louis Mangione case, especially since he hasn't been found guilty yet? And then, of course, we've got to talk all about Doge and the uncoverings of Doge. So today's show is brought to you by Piglet and a seriously funny true story. The book launches August 26th to a bookstore near here: Barnes & Noble's, Books A Million, Amazon, Costco, Target. But as a first-time author with one of the bigger book deals from Simon & Schuster and one of the #1 releases for 2026, as a first-time book author, I'm feeling very competitive, and I get a marketing bonus if I personally can push before Simon Schuster takes over the marketing, which will be like in July. If I can sell as many books as I possibly can, I can actually get a massive marketing bonus, which just helps me to go on an even bigger book tour and to see you guys. I'm really starting to amp up for the book tour, and that's why I'm really trying to get all these pre-sales going, because I would really love to just hang out with all of you guys and celebrate for as long as I can the release of this book that we have worked on for 4 years. And so 4 or 5 years. So anyway, You can go and pre-order on Amazon or Books A Million or Barnes and Nobles, whatever you want to do. Head over to there right now and pre-order Pig Latin, a seriously funny true story. And if you do, DM me and I will send you a free bookmark. You'll get the Eric Tansey bookmark. You sell a book to a friend, you'll get a second bookmark. Or I should say this: you buy a book, you get the card. If you like and subscribe to Fox News and Failure to Stop, and you screenshot that or send it to me, you can get the second. You can get the second bookmark. If you sell a book to a friend, you get the third bookmark. And then if you show up to one of the meetups or you do something else that I deem is incredible or awesome, you sell another book, you get the fourth, and you've collected all four. Of course, they'll be signed and autographed, and these bookmarks were designed by first responder artist Jonathan Bates. So, okay, today's show is also brought to you by ghostbed.com, Sleep So Good It's Scary, and Shieldbox. Promo code Wolfpack, factormeals.com/Wolfpack50. Let's jump into it. Here we go. Josh, come on in here. I got Josh to help me with all of the things here. Very sad news yesterday. Breaking news yesterday. Jamie White murdered in his home in Austin. Media is not putting very much out about that. What we do know is that it was, let's see, the Austin Police Department. This is coming from Hindustan Times. And listen, here's the reason why I chose Hindustan Times versus the Independent or something like that. It's because at least the Hindu Times doesn't have to go in and put big giant red blurbs every time you mention Alex Jones's name. How juvenile is media today that they can't say Alex Jones's name without putting 1,000 caveats and making it very difficult to read the article, because all they want to do is make sure that you know that they think Alex Jones is a huge piece of shit, which is, why we're independent journalists, because we don't want to deal with that. So Hindustan Times, it all says the same stuff, just without all of these crazy red and blue marks that defame, and retard the name of Alex Jones, which, funny, that's what he's exactly a criminal of, is defamation. But it seems like everybody else can defame Alex Jones as much as they want, up until the point where one of his best independent journalists and reporters is murdered for it, and we don't see any big lawsuits. Did you have something on that, Josh?
No, it's one of those things where he keeps getting called a conspiracy theorist, and the longer and longer we go, I think Alex Jones is Miss Cleo back when we were kids. So like conspiracy theorist is what they call it, or like future, like being right, or like psychic. I don't know what you want to call it, because it seems like he's always right.
Well, would you rather get your news, and would you trust the news coming from The View or coming from Alex Jones? If you had to choose, if you really had to choose on one news source, an entertainment source, right? An entertainment news source, you know what I mean? If you had to choose and you had your options were The View or Alex Jones, who would you pick?
I pick Alex Jones, and here's why. Because as soon as The View gets done talking about their segment, like, oh, this vaccine, this segment was brought to you by Pfizer. That's why. Because The View and everything else is all propaganda. It's all bought. Alex Jones isn't bought. He's got his own money. Well, kind of.
Right. And what happens when you're not bought is, just like with Project Veritas, the government, the big government propaganda machine comes after you. And if you get close enough to anything, whether it be something that happens in a pizza restaurant or something that happens in Haiti with children being relocated who weren't orphans. So sorry. They actually did have parents. We're sending them back now. But anybody that's investigating this hangs themselves, or any journalist that gets close to that dies in some kind of wackadoodle plane crash. But here again, we have another journalist, reporter, Jamie White. The murder of any journalist is a big deal. It's a real big deal, because without journalism, how do I word this? You need journalists who aren't afraid to be murdered for uncovering stories, or else the stories will never get uncovered.
Well, if you think about like what's a journalist? They're fact finders to tell the truth. They're, in a way, they're cops without a badge.
They're investigators.
In a way, they're investigators. They are there to find the truth. And oftentimes there's corruption and there's things that you don't want people to know about. And when you start to get, we say when you're over the target, things like this happen sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that they make movies like Landman, or you think they make movies like Yellowstone just based on somebody's imagination? No, they pull real stories and they just put it into some kind of, fictional scene and they add them all together. But these things really happen. Stuff like this really happens. Greg LaMontagne from The Bar is Open with Beth and Greg. By the way, I wore my Beth and Greg shirt all day yesterday, and for some reason, everybody in the world wanted to ask me about what is The Bar is Open with Beth and Greg. Everybody from the person at the Lowe's grocery store to the guys at the jiu-jitsu gym, and then over to the library. Actually, somebody was like, "Oh, the bar is open." It was an old lady. "Oh, the bar is open with Beth and Greg. Well, is that a new bar in Clayton?" No, it's a podcast. Well, what's a podcast? But anyway, we appreciate Greg from being in here. Says, did White murder himself? I don't think so. I think he was murdered right there in your neck of the woods there, Greg. Austin, Tejas. Let me read from the Hindu Times. Again, only reading from the Hindu Times because the Hindu Times doesn't caveat Alex Jones's name every time. So the Austin Police Department told Fox 7 that cops found an adult male with obvious signs of trauma in South Austin on Sunday at around midnight. The man was rushed to a hospital where he succumbed to his injuries. On social media, Jones blasted the district attorney for White's murder. "I lay all this squarely at the feet of Soros and of the sort of crime syndicate of the Democratic Party. They are the ones that administratively cut the police, prosecuted the police, and even cases that are 100% clear to be lawful legal activities," he said. He added, "You murdered Jamie White. You opened the door. You created the climate. You created the conditions on purpose. George Soros, Alexander Soros. You murdered Jamie White. These are sick, degenerate, evil people that know that they are doing, and they aided and abetted. They are accomplices to the murder of a great American and InfoWars longtime veteran, Jamie White." We're going to play you that clip here in just a second. Actually, we're going to play it for you right now because we just read about it. So, now that you read about it, let's watch it so you can see it in his own words.
Cities and jurisdictions the Democrats run. They're monsters. And so to the globalist, and the same thing's happening in Europe and other areas, you murdered Jamie White. You opened the door. You created the climate. You created the conditions on purpose. George Soros, Alexander Soros, you murdered Jamie White. Joe Biden, you murdered Jamie White. Democratic Party, Hakeem Jeffries, Al Green, you murdered Jamie White. They are accomplices to the murder of a great American and InfoWars longtime veteran reporter, Jamie White. And President Trump needs to point his finger at the Austin scumbag DA and say, you little monster, you are responsible. Jose Garza, just as much as the person or people that murdered our reporter.
Now, it'll be interesting to see what comes out of the investigation for the murder. It happened just before midnight. So very, I would assume that probably Alex Jones knows more than most, but I would hate to come out and be that angry and that violent only to find out that he was murdered by, maybe an estranged loved one or something like that. We'll have to see because the media really didn't give us that much. We got more when Nancy Pelosi's husband was bludgeoned with a hammer than we have with this. Like, at least we had a tool or a weapon that we could go off of. With this, they're giving us absolutely nothing.
Let me give you a little bit of supporting evidence. If you are cautious and follow safety advice, you still may become an unfortunate victim of robbery. Do you know what your next step should be? Make a police report, provide as much information as possible so we can recover your property quickly and safely. Call 311 to make an online report. This was just 2 years ago, September 1st, 2023, from the Austin Police Department. This is an actual social media thing that they put out. Crime was so bad that they couldn't deal with going to robberies. So that would be a good reason of why he didn't just go, "Hey, I'm mad at you." He named like the prosecutors. He named very specific people. So it's one of those where with Alex Jones, he goes really hard in the paint sometimes. And sometimes it's hard to get behind it because you're like, I don't know. But then like I said before, in a long enough time, Alex Jones is right. the crime in Austin is outrageous since this new DA's got put in there. And when you go back and you look on who funded to get this DA in there, it was Soros funded DAs. They put $500,000 or close to $1 million into to get this guy in there. So why would they want to buy to put this guy in there? Because they want favorable things for them. And stuff like this happens. Like, we cover a wide variety of things between here and Failure to Stop. And some of the topics that we cover, I don't ever think that we're ever covering anything that's too crazy, because everything that we cover is pretty, like, I don't have to really go deep into the internet. Like, I'm not into the dark web and anything like that. I'm just using regular Google. So I figure if anybody else can use regular Google, then I feel kind of safe. But I even joke with my friends sometimes when we bring a story out. I'm like, hey, we're going to bring a story out tomorrow. And just so you guys know, I didn't get Clinton. I very much want to be alive. So it's like, even it's not even a joke, but it's a joke within my community, like my friends, that things that we cover, that this happens. And it's sad. It's pathetic that we're in a time where a journalist will lose their life. And we don't know whether it's nefarious or not, because where's the police activists? Where's we need the body camera. We need transparency. Where's the transparency on this? If you want to get rid of conspiracies, you need to start coming out with facts, because the longer that you sit there and go, hey, we found someone that was obvious trauma. Well, what's obvious trauma? Were they shot? Were they stabbed? Did you
right? Yeah, if it's obvious, then you know what the trauma is. It's obvious.
There's something.
Right?
There's
so
something.
we can start going off of that. I don't know exactly how that works. As far as like what the media gets to know, I'd like to talk to an Austin police officer. So if anybody knows an Austin cop that wants to reach out to me, under the table, let me know. Maybe he can give me some more answers, because the street cop's going to know. You know what I mean? It's not him that's putting out the information. The detective knows, but it's not him that puts out the information. And that's what people think is like, well, are the cops covering this up? Why are they covering up? Well, it's never the cops, right? So like a detective can't talk. Like, it's a policy. We're not allowed to talk to the media. That's why you don't see street cops ever talking to the media unless they have, when I, in my book, it's one of the stories in my book, but there is an opportunity where they were from a case that they wanted me to talk to media. I shot it down because it's a very, it's a touchy subject in law enforcement. We don't, if you could go back to remember the movie Miracle on Ice, where the media is kind of like used to saying that the coach is going out on the media for clout. And so he's like, fuck it. And brings in another guy and just, never talks to the media again. It's kind of like that in law enforcement. We don't want to talk to the media. That's not why we're there. However, the city manager and the chief, they elect a PR person, and that PR person is the spokesperson for law enforcement. And they're more often than not some kind of an attorney, which is on the side of the city. And so that's who gets to put out the information. And that information gets to be whatever. I worked another story in the book, a horrific gang violence scene where a child lost his head. It's in the book in gory detail, so you'll enjoy it. Pig Lana, seriously funny true story. It's not very funny, but there's some dark humor in that story. But anyway, a child does lose his head in the story. And what's put out to the media is that it was just a random act of violence. In Southeast Raleigh, they make no mention of the gangs. They make no mention of the very, very reasonable, as far as gangs go, reasonable reason why they killed this guy. Like, there was a reason. It wasn't that the gangs were like, we want to kill this kid and make his head disappear. No, there was something. There was a crime against the gang, if you will, and there was a retaliation for it. And the news doesn't, they didn't put that out. They didn't choose to. So it's the detectives know in this case what happened. The street cops in this case know what happens. However, the media personnel for the department doesn't want you, the people, to know. And why don't you, the people, need to know? Is it because a journalist was killed from some left-wing nut? Was he killed because he was investigating something? This is a very, very experienced veteran, independent journalist who's going after the money. If you guys ever remember Chauncey Bailey was murdered in 2007. He was an American journalist noted for his work primarily on African-American communities, but he was not even infiltrating. He was doing a story about a Muslim like a Muslim gang called Your Black Muslim Bakery, and he was trying to kind of expose what they were doing, and he went to meet with two of his sources, and they murdered him. The Muslim Brotherhood or whatever this Muslim brother was, they murdered him, because he was getting too close to exposing whatever it was. I can't remember, but you can look it up. Chauncey Bailey, that was a big story in 2007. And so, what was Alex Jones, this guy, looking in? But here's the big point of today's story, and I'll let you guys go, is that he's never going to get the empathy or the time or the media attention because he's attached to Alex Jones. By the way, Alex Jones looks great right now. He's sober. He looks fierce and mean, surviving, this big giant political barrage of silencing, which I'm completely against. Just like, and just so you know, I'm fair. You guys know my stance on Julian Assange. I don't agree with any kind of persecution over journalism. If the journalism is doing its best to put out real information, or at least what they truly believe is real information. Now, I do have a problem with overt propaganda and what is not good information, and you put it out anyway. But that's not what InfoWars is guilty of. In fact, InfoWars has been way more right than it's ever been wrong, and it's still never. Alex Jones has always been blackballed way more than like I said, The View. I don't think that's fair, because The View says the most inciting, heinous, and vile and vicious things, and they get away with it even though their ratings are terrible. Whereas Alex Jones has always had amazing, incredible ratings, huge cult-like following for Alex Jones.
I don't remember if it's ever happened. I mean, it may have. I'll have to go back and look, but I don't know that Alex Jones has ever had an attorney come through his earpiece on air and had him read a statement because they said something that was so bad that they have to make another statement so they don't get sued.
Right.
That is like a normal every 3 or 4 minute thing on The View now. Like,
well,
hey, remember that thing we just said? We don't mean that.
Right. The Independent, I catch some using it all the time, but just to give you an example of way the American propaganda media works, Alex Jones has reported that journalist for his website InfoWars has been killed near his Texas apartment in a suspected homicide. The far-right shock jock said in a broadcast on Monday afternoon that Jamie White, whom he calls his best reporter, had been brutally murdered late Sunday near his home in Austin. Jones accused Austin's Democratic, and I'm not going to read the same paragraph. It's the same paragraph that we read earlier. But here goes. City police have not confirmed White's death, saying only that they responded to an emergency call at 11:57 p.m. Sunday night and found an injured man with obvious signs of trauma who later died in a nearby hospital. Officials did not respond to the request for comment. The Independent and other sources beyond InfoWars, which has a long history of fabrications, they have to put that in big, giant, bold red, has yet confirmed White's identity. In his broadcast, Jones blamed local Democrat politicians, including Austin District, blah, 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 blah. And so, it's just these bright red caveats. They just do a really great job of, using far right shock jock and long history of fabrications. And he doesn't have a long history of fabrications. In fact, he has what you believe were fabrications, but he was right. The frogs turning gay. That was absolutely a thing. Bin Laden crashing planes into the World Trade Center. He called that. He said it was going to happen. And then it happens a year later or whatever it was. And so, how many times is, where he got wrong was that he was questioning Sandy Hook. By the way, none of those answers to some of those questions have now. Listen, I don't know that I would have gone as hard in the paint on the Sandy Hook thing as he did. I think he went way off the rails on that. And should he be punished for going off the rails as a journalist? Sure. But should he be, what was it, $1 billion or something like that?
Yeah, I don't remember ever any other CNN's never been, hey, you got that wrong. Russiagate was wrong. Hey, right. The media and everybody got the laptop. We got that wrong. Hey, we had to pay billions of dollars for that. We got that wrong. No one's ever paid anything.
Anytime that you get close, the left wing, the left media, the conservatives don't go after any of these journalists. And you talk about political persecution, you talk about democracy, and you talk about fascism. The right never turned down Project Veritas. Now, Julian Assange, both sides went after him, right and left went after Julian Assange. And that's why, again, big government goes after, Project Veritas. That was 100% the left went after Project Veritas. And then, of course, the left went after InfoWars, and then Julian Assange. Hillary Clinton thought about what her idea that she proposed was bombing one of the buildings that he was in that had civilians in it, just to get rid of Julian Assange, to drone strike Julian Assange, who was literally exposing that there were no weapons of mass destruction. He was exposing that Americans were committing, accidental or not, war crimes that nobody was doing anything about. And in fact, there was the helicopter pilots who accidentally bombed like a wedding party that was coming home from a wedding party. They got the guy they were looking for, but there was like, I don't know, 6 or 7 other people that died. And the Apache pilot is kind of joking about it on the audio tapes. Julian Assange recovered that audio leak because a insider, a Navy chick, found them, and she sent it over, and she went to jail for treason and all sorts of stuff. And yeah, I mean, it was, a big deal. But at the end of the day, those tapes are real. And Julian Assange was essentially punished and persecuted for doing journalism, for exposing that story. The same with the Ashley Biden diary. The girl who found the diary did the right thing over giving the diary to the police. The police gave the diary back to her. She gave it, or sold it, to Project Veritas. Project Veritas didn't release it, sends it over to the FBI. The FBI says it's not hers. They released the story only to find out that it absolutely is hers, because they had forensic analysis go deep dive all of the writings in the diary, or the journal, whatever you want to call it. I call it a journal, not a diary. Media calls it a diary to make it more salacious, but it was a journal because she was in sex rehab. She was in sex and substance abuse rehab because she was she admits self-admittedly that she's addicted to sex and cocaine. So at the end of the day, for releasing this real journalism that's really true, that she talked about inappropriate showers with her father and inappropriate jokes with her brother and inappropriate sexual discussions, they were the whole media company was shut down and raided. All of their cameras, all of their equipment raided, confiscated, never given back. And then, of course, the girl who originally found the journal, who turned it over to the police and had the police turn it back over to her, she was arrested, and she's serving time in jail for selling. And she even offered to give it back to Ashley Biden, but Ashley Biden wouldn't respond to her. So this girl did nothing wrong, yet she was politically and journalistically persecuted. That wasn't from the right, that was from the left. And often, and we could go back into the whole Clinton days when anybody tried to expose anything that the Clintons did, especially when it came down to the Hillary Clinton Foundation and things like that. And how many YouTubists and independent journalists were taken down during the COVID times, who were effectively right. So again, it goes all to say that this is a much bigger deal than it's being played out to be. The reason why it's not being played out to be a big deal is because he's attached to Alex Jones. But anytime a journalist is murdered, it is a big deal. It is a big deal because journalists should not live in fear to do their investigative journalism. We, the people, should protect journalists from the left and the right at all costs. They should be allowed to investigate without the fear of being murdered. And I think journalists are some of the bravest people on earth. I mean, they're doing this without guns, without protection. They're going in to talk to people in Saudi Arabia, and journalists get murdered. They're trying to uncover things in Myanmar. They get murdered. I could not imagine. One of my biggest fears would literally being on boots on the ground in Myanmar as a journalist, and trying to explain to the rest of the world what's going on in Burma and Myanmar or in the Congo or anything like that. I mean, just terrifying stuff. Or how about the journalists going in and trying to tell the story of the cartels coming in and out of Mexico? I mean, looking over your shoulder, constantly living in fear. What an adrenaline junkie a lot of these journalists must be. So when one of them dies, it is very sad. Armory Knight says, Eric, all of those against the Clintons felt so bad. They just couldn't stay alive out of guilt. We all know that. You're right. If Dick Cheney and Obama taught us anything, war crimes are okay if it's in the Middle East, right? But if it's Russia committing the same crimes, then we must hold him accountable in a world court. I'm not pro-Russia, but I will say that for every time that some kind of building or apartment is bombed by Putin. I could show you 6 more cases that are bigger, worse, and crazier under the Bush administration or the Obama administration in Iraq or Afghanistan, or any place like that. So, or Syria, anything of the sort. So, it's not fair. And I'm not saying, but we should all know that if we're going to hold somebody guilty for something, we shouldn't throw rocks if if you're in a glass house. What about all the Christians being killed in mass Syria right now? Yeah, this is extremely something that we're going to talk to. I might have a special guest on that. If he's not redeploying back over there, he just got home from private contracting. He's a big Christian. He's a big advocate. He's with a private contracting group, and just got home. And it looks like he's already gearing back up. So I'm going to try to get him on to talk about the whole Syria thing. So we'll see if I can get him. Greg says, "Work time. Y'all have an amazing day." Thank you guys, everybody. Tune into the Bars Open with Beth and Gag. Tomorrow's show gonna be huge. Tesla riots. We've got that big hack on X. We got Luigi Mangione porn tapes. This is a big story too, because, well, let's get into it tomorrow. But this is a really big story. Luigi Mangione. How would you like to have legal sex tapes in your home that you're allowed to have, that you're allowed to do? There's nothing, the law has been broken, but during a search warrant, they watch your sex tapes, which that's going to happen. But then they report your sex tapes and all gory details behind your legal private sex tapes that were not, as I know right now, we're going to talk about it more tomorrow, but they weren't leaked to the public, right? These weren't public sex tapes. No, only for the government. And, if anything retards a trial or tries to paint somebody as a criminal, and this goes all the way back to our newest story that we're breaking loose, which is free Daniel Holtzclaw. These are the same things they did to Holtzclaw to make him look like a menace. All of these lies to make everybody equally and collectively hate Daniel Holtzclaw. And he's found guilty for a crime he did not 100% did not even come close to committing, not even flirted with. The crimes that he is now doing 260 years with. He's sitting in prison mainly because, again, political persecution. And there's a little bit more. I think one of the most vile things that this detective did, and I'm going to expose all this with Cameron Santana. Cameron Santana investigates, CSI. But we are starting a new free Holtzclaw. It's going to be over on the Failure to Stop. If you want more of the Pig Latin stuff, head over to our Patreon account. It's $3 every week. I am releasing a new Tansy Time, which is a very personal deep dive into the pre-book Pig Latin, everything leading up to it, from my time trying to make it through the Special Forces School and my time serving in special operations, how that led to me becoming a police officer. It's a very serious breakdown of my life. It's very personal to me. And so I only want real fans, true fans, listening to it, because it does get very personal. It does get very emotional, but it is the lead up to Pig Latin. So for less than coffee a month, you can listen to that. After I get all the way up to it, probably around the June, July time, I'm going to start releasing on that Patreon account some stories from the actual book Pig Latin, and also some insider information of how you guys can meet up with me privately. So if you want to be a part of that, all that money, the $3, a month, is going to helping us all here on the Failure to Stop and Fox Media Company go on this book tour together and meet up with you guys and see you guys. So we really want you to be a part of it. Remember, support us by supporting our sponsors. Head over to ghostbed.com. Sleep so good, it's scary. You guys are going to lose those ghost bed deals soon. I'm just giving you fair warning. I'm not even allowed to, I don't know if I'm allowed to tell you that, but I know that things are being switched up in as early as either April or May, and GhostBed is taking they're doing something even crazier. So all the deals now are going to go away. There's a whole new marketing thing coming up. I hope that we get to be a part of it. But head over to that GhostBed now and get that deal as soon as you can. Get the pillow, the cooling sheets, all of the things. Also, we got factormeals.com/Wolfpack50 meal planning to the next level. And yeah, if you want to get lean and mean like me, head over to factormeals.com. Look, you're looking lean and mean. You're up on those Factor meals these days. Also sporting the Red Pills shirt. Love to see it. All right, guys, we'll see you tomorrow for the big show. Hope to see everybody in the chat. Share us. Give us a 5-star rating or review. Subscribe. Head over to Amazon or Spotify and give us that 5-star review. But we need more fellowship. And the only way we can get that is if you share the show. So hit the share it on your social media, screenshot that you were watching it, share it on your media. I don't care if you have 5 listeners or 500 listeners, share the show. Let them know that you're listening to FAWKES News. And that is where you get all your news. And that is where, that's where you go to party. Thank you guys so much. G.I. Joe says it's the best. Maybe you didn't know about the InfoWars reporter being fatally attacked in his home, but now you do know, and knowing is half the battle. Take us out of here, Joshua.
See you.